Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys Podcast. I'm Lorne.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? It's 420.
It is.
Happy 420, guys.
Happy 420, everybody. Celebrate
Not that
accordingly.
we would know anything about that.
No, because we don't even celebrate it.
No way.
No way. We got productive things we got to work on.
Right.
Like podcasts.
Yeah, man. We got a really good case this week. Mm-hmm. Guy that I was not aware of until someone sent us an email about him. And thank you very much for that.
I can't believe we hadn't heard of him, though.
I know I had the guy who sent us a thing in the email, in the timeline.
Bob Duvall?
Bob Duvall.
Bob Duvall, thank you.
Bob Duvall, thank you for the suggestion. It is great. It's like a stem off of our Freeway Killer series in a sense.
It is. It's a lot like those cases.
This guy is called the Truck Stop Killer.
Yeah. He used the freeways.
Not a creep van, but his own form of creeping on the road, man.
Yeah, you can imagine.
Even
it has
creepier,
something to do with
really.
the truck stop.
Right? Big rig, baby.
Yep.
All the truckers out there, shout out.
I don't think they want a shout out for this episode.
If you're long haul trucking and you got a CB name, shoot us your CB name. I want to know everybody, all the truckers that are listening, I want to know your CB names. We'll retweet you and everything, man.
I want to know about this underground trucker world that I've heard about. I heard there's like this...
Where you like kill women?
I went on a little bit of a tangent while I was studying. You know, I do that sometimes.
Okay.
But
that's good.
But I went on this tangent and I started looking into this underground world, these secret codes, and there's just certain... Like your names mean certain things.
Yeah, like this guy's name was Whipping Chains.
Yeah.
It meant something.
Like
it really did mean something.
This stop, you might could find drugs here, like whatever.
Okay.
It's interesting to me.
Candy cane? Candy cane.
I'm curious.
This guy reminded me a bit of that guy. If you've seen the movie, what the hell's it called?
I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar.
You know the movie with Paul Walker?
Fast and the Furious?
No.
1 through
It's a horror
20.
thriller movie.
Oh.
Candy cane. What the hell's it called?
Candyman?
Road something? Damn it, now I gotta look it up.
All right, look it up.
All right, well.
So when we starting this thing?
Right now.
All right.
Ooh, I got a surprise for y'all. Oh man, y'all are not ready. Here we go. It's True Crime Guys. This here's the intro. The case we did this week is Robert Van Rhoades. This is True Crime Guys. You must already know, because you clicked the link and it's the title of our show.
I really didn't think of anything really clever to put here, so I'm just gonna go on into the next verse. True Crime Guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder, get murder, get murder, get murder. True Crime Guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.
Okay, so you just heard Michael's great intro. I don't know what it's like yet because this is the past.
I know. I
We're in
wonder
the
what
future.
Future Me's going to do.
Right?
It's crazy. I have no idea.
But during the break, we did watch the trailer for the movie Joyride, which I was talking about with Paul Walker.
It's a very good trailer. I feel like I know the whole movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And it actually looks pretty intense.
Rusty Nail. I forgot his name was Rusty Nail, and Paul Walker's name was Candy Cane. And Steve Zahn, underrated actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty intense, right?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to start watching movies like that.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen Joyride, this episode is going to go well with that because this is a creepy, big, long-haul trucker who potentially killed a whole lot of people. So it's really not funny, but it's creepy as shit.
It is very.
This guy was one of the creepiest, most hateable figures that we've covered. I mean, we say that a lot, but he really was. I mean, he was a true, disgusting piece of work.
He was very systematic in the way he did it, too, which made him even creepier.
Yes.
He just seemed so practiced.
By his own admission, by the time he finally got captured, he had told people that he'd been doing this for 15 years.
I believe him.
And yet, on the books, he only has a couple of confirmed murders.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those cases where you're trying to piece it together, kind of like Randy Kraft, where it's like in the end, they had ways to kind of attach him to other killings, but there's no evidence to prove it.
There's no
aside from what
no
they
hard
connected it
evidence.
with.
Plus, you got this guy going all over the United States, so I mean that's kind of hard to track too.
That was the main
what I mean?
issue. That was the main issue, and we're talking about a different time. We're talking about the '80s, late '70s and '80s,
Right.
That he was doing his thing, and so a lot less tracking, a lot less. No one had cell phones, no one had cameras. There wasn't surveillance cameras everywhere, so
Right.
he's just going around doing his thing, potentially dumping bodies in different states and going on his way. And there was at that time a whole lot of unsolved murders, which there pretty much always is, but I feel like even more than in the '80s.
Absolutely.
We talked about the damn freeway killers and how they
Yeah.
could just pretty much nilly-willy leave bodies laying all over the roads. And
every freeway killer is suspected of killing more people.
and
And if there's that many people to assign to all these guys,
and those people were kind of their families were kind of screwed until those people got brazen enough to get caught red-handed, which is kind of what happened here. It's
Yeah.
like law enforcement was kind of
you do it for 15 years, you think you're pretty much grandfathered in.
Randy Kraft, he gets caught with a freaking dude passed out in his passenger seat
Right,
with his
right.
pants down. It's literally got caught with his pants down.
Literally. Well, not with his pants down, but his
No,
victim's pants.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Right. It's just as embarrassing.
I guess so. But yeah, these guys, ultimately, it's the cops had to hope that they got brazen enough and cocky enough that you could catch them in the act. And that's kind of, like I said, what happened in this. But the guy that we keep alluding to, the guy that we studied for this week that we're focusing on is a
We
guy
will
named,
tell you next week. Goodbye.
Yeah.
No.
drum roll, no. You saw it on the title. His name's Robert Ben Rhoades. You may or may not have heard of him, unless you're real entwined in the serial killer thing. You probably haven't heard about this guy, and mainly because his official kill count was so low. But he potentially
kill
killed
count.
just about as many as we've ever. So the police have connected him later on to approximately 50
Yeah.
unsolved murders. Now they can't prove that all of them were him, but they have a connection. He's in the area at the time.
Right. They had his travel logs, so they're just kind of lining him up when he was there.
Yeah. So this guy. He was. We'll talk about his upbringing and stuff before we get into how the police discovered him and get into his crimes. But just overall thoughts on studying him. There was a YouTube 50 minutes crime show that was focused on him.
Kind of just got to the meat of it, though.
That everything kind of got to the meat of him. We don't have a whole lot on his childhood.
He wasn't a talker.
There was a book.
When he didn't spill the beans like Ed Kemper and a lot of the other guys.
he
You know what I mean?
he was a Randy Kraft type, kept it to himself.
Yep.
And only admitted to what they could prove.
Exactly.
Pretty much. But there was a book on him, but it was only in in a written form. We couldn't get it. We couldn't get an audio.
You had
form.
to read it,
Right.
and that's just not our
not
bag.
really
We don't.
our forte.
Yeah.
We'll read articles. That's what we read a whole lot of
Yeah.
articles, and we watched the YouTube doc, and so we're going to base this off of that. But honestly, if the book had a lot about his childhood, more would be out there. I don't think the book, just based off everything that we looked up about him,
Right.
it kind of said the same very, very basic stuff about his childhood, so we don't have a whole lot of psyche to go into with that.
Right.
We don't know a whole lot about his parents.
We can do a lot of speculation, but that's about it. There's just not a lot of details for whatever reason.
Ultimately, I don't think he had frontal lobe damage or impulses. I think he was just a sexual predator. And
he
there
was
are those
conditioned
people.
to be a sexual predator.
There are those people. He was a fetish guy, and he took it too far.
Yep.
And I think he was just too sexually driven to be just driving around on the roads and not he needed maybe if he had a regular 9-to-5 job and a freaky wife, he might have been able to keep his his impulses at bay. But even when he was married, we'll get into he even then was pushing his wife to swing, and she wasn't into it.
She wasn't into it.
And so this guy was just a real promiscuous freak that got out of control and became violent because of his sexual urges.
Yeah, you summed it up, man. I think that's pretty good.
All right, well, let's talk about him. What we know about his childhood: he was born November 22nd, 1945. He shares a birthday with Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Wow, that's a pretty good group there.
Jamie Lee Curtis, one-on-one. I got her in this. She fought Mike Myers.
Oh yeah.
There's a new Halloween coming out,
That's
by the
true.
way. I just saw a poster for it.
Oh really?
Coming out later this year. I'm excited for that. That's one of my favorite series, Halloween series, Michael Myers.
Interesting.
But I mean, she cut Michael Myers' head off with an axe. I don't think this guy stands a chance.
No. Robert Ben Rhoades does not stand a chance. He'll be chained up in his own fucking rig.
Even current day Jamie Lee Curtis selling probiotic yogurt to help you stay regular. I still got her.
She could still handle him, dude.
Right.
She'll probably still be eating yogurt with one hand and still kicking his ass.
Right. He was born in Council Bluffs, Iowa. At the time, there was a population of about 40,000, so a decent-sized town.
Yeah.
For the 40s. And now I think it's like 60,000 or something. So it hasn't grown that much, but...
It's not too bad.
Yeah. I don't know much else about it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's okay. We don't need a town history.
Yeah. He was raised initially by his mother and then by his father after he returned from being stationed in Germany overseas.
Right, but he was still young, though, when his dad came back.
Yeah.
It's not like he was raised without a dad or nothing.
Yeah, his father then later became a firefighter, and his mom was she stayed at home. She was a stay-at-home mother. He had a few problems in school. He played different sports. Like he played football, he wrestled. The Boys Glee Club?
Glee Club? You don't know what that is?
What is it, singing? Like the show
Yeah,
Glee?
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
It's like singing and acting all together.
Not for me, but teach their own.
So he did...
Choir. Right. This guy had some pipes on him, apparently.
Yeah, I guess so. And also French club.
French club.
If I had to guess his heritage, I'd say he was probably French.
You think?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe there's... You know what? He probably chose French like most guys choose the language they're going to do because there's a girl in that class
that
they want to be. It's like, you're taking Portuguese, really? It's like,
right.
Yeah, dude, you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay, but you should take Spanish.
Yeah, but then the Portuguese girl I'm into is not in Spanish class. That was
That's
definitely
true.
a motivating factor in high school. Was like there was days where I was like, I don't want to go to school, but then I was like, wait
a second.
Yeah, I don't know. There were some girls that you just didn't want to miss a day, man.
Right? You never know. Today might be the day she actually knows you exist.
Right, but that's probably the wrong outlook on it.
Yeah, probably.
Absence makes the heart fonder. Miss a day. Any young people there, you're not missing class because you're so needy for the girl next to you. Make her think you don't need her as bad. Maybe that'll help.
Ignore her ass.
Yeah,
She'll
that helps.
love you.
That helps.
Yeah.
Don't just
Especially
be staring
high
at her
school.
all day.
No, don't be. That's just creepy.
Every time she looks over, you look away and whistle.
Because you know what? She knows she's got you in the pocket. Man.
Oh yeah.
You know, she's not going to take the. She's not going to. You know, you're not going to take the first bid of the auction.
Yeah.
You know, but you can hold on to it.
So a little bit of true crime and some like advice for
Relationship advice.
Relationship advice. So yeah, we'll take callers.
Right. That's what we're here for.
Curd to curd. You're trying too hard. Let me tell you. By age 16, in 1963, he was arrested for the first time for tampering with a motor vehicle. I don't know, maybe keyed it, maybe egged it. I don't know.
Yeah, probably just some enemy in high school.
A lot of vague stuff about his childhood. Pretty much
slash tires.
Yeah, I mean, what we dug deeper than Wikipedia. This is kind of stuff that was on Wikipedia, and we still couldn't find much else about his childhood. I mean, everything just seemed to say the same stuff.
Which really sucks because I enjoyed the childhoods.
I know, but this guy's adulthood was so interesting, and we'll get into that. In 1964, he was arrested for fighting. It's typical. Yeah. I mean, right now it's typical shit. Like
Who got arrested for fighting in 1964?
Any of us could have had these arrests on their record when they were a teenager. Like me, like we used to steal chromies, we called them. Like we used to go around to parking lots and steal the things that on your valve stem. You know what I mean? We used to have just a big collection of them, and if you could find like ones that were dice or like bullets, those were worth more points.
I bet in Vegas you found a lot of dice, though.
Dude. But it was always sketchy because you never know when they're going to come walking up and you're down there messing around with their vehicle. Easily he could have gotten in a fight or gotten arrested for tampering with a vehicle.
Right, yeah, absolutely. He could have been out there stealing chromies, I guess.
Right? Maybe he was. And we don't know.
Whatever.
Maybe he was stealing chromies the first time, and that's how he got his first arrest. And the second time he was trying to steal chromies again, and someone fought him, and he got in a fight and arrested him.
Yeah, that's probably a big deal in Iowa.
Chromie stealing?
Yeah.
That was a big thing for Vegas back in the day.
That's funny.
If you need some, let me know. I've got a whole collection.
Oh, do you still? I kept all the rare ones.
In 1964 as well, he enlisted in the Marine. It was a busy year that year. He also enlisted in the Marine Corps after graduating from Monticello High School. His father, the same year, was arrested for performing lascivious acts on a 12-year-old girl.
Who was related to him.
Oh, was she?
Yes, she was a cousin of Robert's.
Now, see, this is an argument about genetics here as far as, like, it can be passed on if you are a pedophile or a sexual predator. If it
I don't. And there was another.
Or if it's a learned behavior, maybe he was still in an impressionable age at 18 years old, and then he saw that his dad had done that, and it just stuck in his head.
Or maybe his dad was messing with him too.
Maybe,
because that's also another theory.
Oh, of course.
And then, but they said that his father was also accused of messing with a male family member, a young male family member as well, but not convicted.
Well, once behind bars for the acts on the 12-year-old girl, he actually committed suicide. So.
Well, I guess that works.
And I guess that was while he was away in the Marines that his father had done that.
Right.
In 1967 through 1968, he had been arrested again for robbery and was discharged dishonorably from the Marines.
Yeah. Then he tried college. That didn't work out.
Dropped out of college, applied for a job as a police officer.
What? Like they're going to hire you as a police officer?
Right.
You know how much shit they put you through to be a cop? Like,
right. You got several like robberies. Like those are the people you're supposed to catch.
They would have denied him
those.
for stealing chromies alone.
Like it says here, you stole chromies back in 65.
And you still have them. I mean, that's weird.
Yeah, I saw them on your car when you pulled in. Bullets, that's a nice touch.
You got 4 different ones. That's a tell sign.
No one has a collection of chromies like that, sir. Denied. Forget the robberies.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so he didn't get the job as a police officer. He got married. He would end up being married 3 different times, and all of them would be failures. And I think it has a lot to do with his weird sex
his BDSM
obsessions.
Yeah.
I mean, we all love sex, come on, but
right.
I mean, and if you're into BDSM, I'm not judging.
Hey, no, that's cool, but
like if you're forcing it on your partner, like they're not that
and
into
your
it,
partner's not into it, don't do that.
you're forcing your partner to
Don't
like
do that.
bang other people.
Yeah.
And like you want to bang other people and
Right.
want her to watch, and like there's a picture of him. We may have to post.
I think I'm just going to use that for the advertisement.
Yeah, because we're getting to these times now where he's, this guy, he's now an adult. He knows what he likes.
The picture is great.
He went from working in stores, supermarkets, warehouses, restaurants, and eventually settled on being a long-haul trucker, which seemed to fit his personality. Not that all of you guys are freaks, but there's some truckers that...
I think it takes a special type of person to be alone that much.
Yeah.
And especially travel that far.
Yeah.
So you're constantly
Nowadays,
in a
you got
strange
podcasts,
place.
though. You're like hanging out with us, and then you go hang out with Joe Rogan or whoever else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess so.
Whatever podcast you're into.
But there's still no back and forth, though. I mean, I guess you can call people.
Oh, you can talk to them. You can talk to your podcast. There's people talking to us right now.
Yeah, what'd you say? What did you? Well, we're just going to go on with the story because we can't. Your reception is not that good.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Get a better phone.
Yeah.
Stupid.
You guys are so stupid.
So he settles on being a long-haul trucker, and he's still married at the time, and he gets heavily involved in BDSM. That's where you see the picture of him, I think was around this time.
Yeah,
he always
I think so too.
He always wore the cool, like, cocaine addict, aviators.
Yeah, he definitely looked like he was in the mob.
With the hazel tint to him.
Yeah, the fade.
The fade.
So the bottom is clear, and then it gets darker as it goes
Those are underrated.
Up. They are.
I like them. I like being able to look up and actually see better.
Like, let's see what the sun really looks like today.
Right. But there's a picture of him in whips and chains and leather.
Right.
Like very revealing leather gimp outfit in a sense, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen Pulp Fiction?
Yeah,
Similar outfit. And
Very
he's
similar.
rocking it. He didn't look too bad in it back then.
He looks pretty comfortable.
Hairy guy, but,
Hey,
some people are into that too.
It was the 70s, right?
The Bears.
Yeah.
The Bears.
The Bears.
That's a whole genre. Bears. Big hairy guys.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So he gets heavily into BDSM, and somewhere around 1975 is when it's suspected, and when he kind of began, like, later on that's kind of like his supposed starting point, because he said by 1990 that he'd been doing it for 15 years. So that's kind of where I pegged the start of his serial sex crimes on people and / potential murders. It was 1975, and had been doing it for a while before the police finally discover him.
Right.
Now we'll start getting into his first confirmed murder, however. His first confirmed victims were Candace Walsh and her husband Douglas Zyskowski. Sorry, it's a tough name.
Nailed it.
In January of 1990. So like we said, potentially been already doing this for a long time. Cruising the country in his big rig, picking up people.
Yeah, they were missionaries, right?
They were actually
Mormon missionaries.
Mormon missionaries. They were traveling from Georgia to Seattle, and I think they were trying to spread the word.
I think they're going Seattle to Georgia.
Were they?
Yeah, because I remember reading the article and they were like, they were going to spread Christianity to the east. And I was like, honey, it's already there. Like, if it's anywhere, that's where it is.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. So he picks these two up, and that's usually how he would do it. He'd pick them up at rest stops or anybody hitchhiking along the road. We've
Yep.
gone into in-depth conversations about hitchhiking in the 70s, 80s,
Yep.
even into the early 90s with like Eileen Warnos, picking her up. She was flipped it on its head, though. She was the one being picked up, killing
yeah,
people. But
exactly.
typically, the person picking up the hitchhiker was more at risk.
I think these people are kind of out of his normal victim range, though, don't you think? I feel like people knew about them. They knew that they were traveling. I'm sure they had like a church that backed them, which typically how missionary
They
work
had just
works.
gotten married, deeply religious.
Yeah.
Very sad story here.
Because I think the reason he had such success, I guess if you want to call it that, in killing people was the fact that he knew how to pick victims. He picked people that were insignificant, people who nobody cared about. And this was out of
that's
his
a staple
realm here,
of the
though.
freeway killers. Staple of the freeway killers was that. But I mean, we talked about like that, how much of a falsehood that was, though, with like Randy Kraft and William Bonin's. Like, people said that they were like lower class society. Most of them were just gay people he picked up at bars. They weren't even like. They weren't sex workers. They weren't like, Well,
no, not in that case.
I know, but I'm saying like that was kind of how it was in the 70s and 80s. Anybody that was different was looked down on, and like they were a lower class of society, and that's how he looked at people too. This guy, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Maybe.
if they're hitchhiking, all of a sudden they're lower. They're now.
Oh, just because just the fact that they're hitchhiking.
Yeah, they
makes
must
them
be a lower class of society.
Oh,
when
okay.
really this is like a newlywed couple who's just going around spreading religion and
Yeah.
starting out their lives, and there was nothing wrong with them.
Just hitchhiking on the West Coast in the 70s.
That was the problem. They should have known better, but
the fuck? Like, really?
I think they were probably the type that wanted to believe the best in everybody. You know what I mean? And it backfired on them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It could be, man. If they were real radical in their beliefs, and I've seen people do some crazy shit in the name of religion, dude.
Yeah.
They believe.
Well, he picked him up and immediately killed the husband, Douglas Zyskowski, shot him in the head, and this was kind of what he would do. It was about the woman. It wasn't about the man. He was just an obstacle. Mm-hmm. And so once in the truck, I don't know if he shot him in the truck, but somehow or another he quickly killed him, ditched his body, and he was actually not found until 1992. He dumped his body in Sutton County, Texas, and was finally found 2 years later. He kept Walsh for over a week. Now, this is something he would do. He had somewhat of a mobile torture chamber in the back of his truck. Like, his cabin had places to chain you to and things like that. Now, they must have looked somewhat average because, like, a lot of times the woman would go back there to go, like, if he picked up, a woman at a truck stop,
she would fall asleep, right?
She would go back there, fall asleep.
I was just about to bring that up.
And then he would wake her up in the middle of the night, and she would wake up being chained to some kind of mounts inside of his cabin.
Yeah. Can you imagine just going in there and just sitting down looking? There's like all kinds of things to be chained to, a couple pairs of handcuffs, maybe like a mace, just all hanging in there.
Nothing
and
out of the ordinary here.
I think I'll take a nap.
That's what I'm saying, though. I don't think they were that easily
Bloodstained
seen.
sheets.
I'm
sure it's fine.
He must have had them to where it looked somewhat normal, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, somehow the hooks were disguised or... Well, I don't think but it didn't matter in Candace's sense because he had already killed her newlywed husband. So I think he just probably overpowered her, and he ended up holding her captive for over a week.
Right.
And during this time, he tortured and raped her multiple times before eventually dumping her body in Millard County, Utah. So he dumped her husband's body in Texas and her body in Utah. That just gives you an idea of the scope of the amount of miles he was covering and why it was so hard to link these together. Mm-hmm. And, there was just so many missing persons.
What do you think caused him to dispose of people? What made him finally want to end it? Because he kept people at like different times, and I couldn't find.
I don't think he was a necrophiliac, and I think it just got to the point where, like, how long does he want to take care of this person? He used him for what he wanted. He tortured them, had sex with them, and then I think it got old for him. With them, I think he got off
because he broke their spirit or something.
Well, you hear several instances where like people that survived him and like his ex-wives and stuff say that he got off on other people's suffering, and so if it got to the point where they accepted their situation, and they weren't as fun for him.
That's what I'm saying.
To torture,
they lost that fight.
I think that was the issue. honestly, because like I even heard something about his ex-wife saying, one of his ex-wives saying that like one of them was going through an illness, like a severe illness, and was in a lot of pain.
And he got off on it. He would come to the hospital and just to watch her in suffering.
Yes,
that
got
is
sexual
twisted.
pleasure out of other people's pain. That's some kind of a almost mental illness or some kind of a,
I don't know. It's just some kind of sadistic nature for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So like we said, he would hold on to these girls for a week, sometimes even a month, but it probably just depended on how much he was getting off on it, and before he finally decided he was done with them. And
that
then,
makes sense.
And there was things he would do, like he would cut their hair.
Yeah, with like a straight razor too.
Yeah, he liked short hair.
It.
He liked short hair. He would cut it real short, and he was even known to like shave their pubic hair. So he was basically turning them into what he wanted, and there was torture. He had his own kind of kit that we'll talk about that the police would later discover. But yeah, it's a very, very sad situation where this young couple is
just starting their life together.
Yeah, religious, really good probably really nice people that had a great outlook on life and just positive, and then they run into one of the world's worst people. Like this guy, is just a demon walking on earth.
Yeah, no other way to describe it, man.
Yeah. Her body was later found by deer hunters 22 miles south of Fillmore in October of 1990. She'd been dead for several months by the time she was found. And she wasn't actually identified until 13 years later. Her body had been sitting in the basement of the Millard County Sheriff's Office before they finally were able to link who she was because of capturing her killer.
It seems like they would be able to match her to something much easier.
Well, DNA, all that stuff was, and it was where he took her from, and then where the body was found. And that's the problem. Is like these people are coming up missing in one state. Yeah, coming up. Up missing, and then 10 states over, there's just a body found and it's badly decomposed, and it's like, okay, well,
and it's not like she was reported missing in Seattle because she was supposed to be traveling. Yeah, it was kind of the perfect storm for those. I think that's why their body sat so long.
Yep. Now something crazy happens that is like the first real close call for this guy. We've also talked about in the past with other freeway killers there's close calls where they should have been. This should have been it. Yep. But on February 5th, 1990, a woman named Nicole Tuttle. Now this may be a fake name, and it probably should be. Like some of the victims in this is especially surviving victims, like they shouldn't have to have their name brought up all the time. Right. It was reported as Nicole Tuttle in like the YouTube documentary we watched and stuff, but I'm sure it was. But we'll just call her Nicole. Yeah. 18 years old, was frantically trying to flag down a driver on a highway in eastern Texas. A driver stopped. She looked like she'd been beaten. She had a dog leash around her neck, and her hair looked like it had been chopped off. So the driver obviously rushed her to the police and to the hospital. She told police that she'd been abducted and raped by a truck driver. She said that she had hitched a ride with a trucker in California. He said his name was Dustin and that he was headed for Arizona. Now, like we kind of talked about, she had fell asleep in the back in his cabin, and when she woke up, the trucker was chaining her up in the sleeper cab, whipped her, raped her, sodomized her, and she said she was kept in the cab for 6 days before he took her to his apartment in Houston, Texas.
How do you become that comfortable with somebody you just got in the truck with?
Where you fall asleep in the back?
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing is like there was a couple people that got away, and that's where a lot of their case was based on. Mm-hmm. But those people said that he had, like, upon meeting him, he had this fatherly, warm, comforting feeling. Right. To women, to younger women, and like I guess he was just had a real,
like most serial killers, very charismatic. Yeah, and like we said, in his younger days, in his BDSM days, if you will, he wasn't a bad looking dude.
No, he looked like a normal, father figure type guy, I guess, in a sense. He looked like he could have been an unassuming truck driver, like your average looking guy, which a lot of serial killers are. Right. And if you had a warm vibe when you meet somebody, and sometimes they're disguising a much darker side, and that was the case here. And so, she passed out. And I mean, if you're driving from state to state, if you're willing to get in and hitch a ride, you're going to get tired. And then maybe the fact that you're so tired clouds your judgment, and you're like, I'm just going to go nap for a bit.
You're not going to outride that trucker, that's for sure. He's probably used to staying up.
Well, most of them are on meth.
Yeah, coke.
Not most, probably. I think that was probably
meth. You just said most truckers are on meth.
Yeah, I'm definitely generalizing. Yeah. Hey,
we don't really believe that.
Let us know your handle.
We don't believe that candy cane.
Over the CB, and also let us know whether you do meth or not. Or maybe don't. DM us if you're going to do that. Don't put it out publicly.
Yeah, it's whatever, though.
How is it? You get the blue stuff? Yeah, so yeah, like we said, he took her to his apartment in Houston, and once back in his apartment, he chained her to his bed and continued raping her, and then left to return with a straight razor, placing the blade close to her scalp, cropped her hair off, which is how she was found with the short hair.
Yeah, I mean, he would all but shave their heads. I mean, he was cutting pretty close on some of these girls.
Yeah, it must have just been something he was attracted to, because it didn't seem like he was trying to disguise them by any means. It was because he was keeping them in his truck pretty much. The only time they would see daylight is either going from the truck to his apartment if he took them back there, or they were just stuck in the truck.
You know why I think he did it? I think it was just a mental game. I think it was a way to destroy their sense of pride.
Possibly.
And to destroy their sense of beauty, and for them to... If you look like shit, you're going to feel like shit eventually.
Yeah.
I think, especially if you feel like you look like shit.
Kind of like Ted Bundy-esque, you know, how he liked to take beautiful college girls and like turn them ugly. He would like beat them with logs and stuff like that.
Right. And I think this was a way of just breaking their spirit. This was a psychological game for him.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I could see that, because like I don't think it was to disguise them by any means. Remember when later on he makes a phone call and he says there has been changes made. That would kind of maybe point to what you're saying, making some sense. He made changes to this pretty girl type of thing. Now he gets a little too comfortable with Nicole here. After having her chained up in his apartment, he went and took her back to the truck, but he didn't chain her up this time. And his next stop was at a brewery. And when he got out to go inside the brewery, he left her alone, not chained up, and she was able to escape.
We're going on 2 weeks now.
Yeah, that he's had her captive.
Yeah, because she spent 6 days in the truck, and then another 8 days at his house.
Yeah, and so she saw an opportunity and ran, and that's when she flagged down the driver. And this is her story to the police. Police soon pulled over a truck matching the description that she gave, and when they drove her to the scene, she was driven to the scene to identify the guy that's been holding her captive and doing all this stuff to her. Upon meeting with this guy, she said it wasn't her attacker, but it was the fact that she was completely petrified of this guy.
I don't know what the procedure is, but that doesn't seem like a very good idea to me. Why would you put her in his line of sight to identify him? Why not? Why not go
she's
ahead?
Got to literally point at him, and he sees her pointing. Like, this is why there's the two pane glass or whatever.
Exactly.
The
Why
glass.
not take 30 minutes out of his time, take him back to the station? He's not under arrest, whatever. Just tell him if he volunteers, put him behind some glass, let her look. Yeah, that's him. I mean, you put her right in front of him after she just escaped a man that's tortured her for the last 2 weeks.
Right. You don't even have to have him in a lineup. Just have him being interviewed, and let her view him through the window when he's not looking, and just say,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I'm with you, man. Like, she's literally been held with this guy for 2 weeks, and he's like, she knew she was dead.
Yeah, probably all he had to do was look at her, and she was going to crumble.
She later said, because initially she said that it wasn't him, and that she didn't even want the police to investigate this anymore. She just wanted it to be over. She wanted to go home. So even if they'd captured who they thought it was, she wasn't going to press charges or whatever, and she wasn't going to identify him. She wasn't going to testify against him.
Right.
And so they had to drop it, but she later told them that was him, and she was just so afraid that she was still in danger even with the police there. That's how afraid of this guy she was. She said even with you guys there, she didn't trust that he wasn't going to be able to get her.
And she probably also thought that, okay, let's say he does get convicted. I mean, he's just going to get convicted of kidnap and rape. So he's going to get out.
Yeah.
He's going to get out eventually.
Yeah.
And that's what she's thinking too.
Yeah. And this is a woman that he had picked up at a truck stop.
Right.
And I think she may have been a sex worker, and maybe she thought that her testimony wasn't going to mean as much. You know, there's always that too. It's like, how much are people going to care, you know,
exactly,
if it goes to trial. This guy's he had no record either. That was another problem for the police, is that they had a suspicion by the way she was acting.
Misdemeanors when he was a kid, but other than that.
Right. So yeah, he ended up getting a close call there. That same day, this tells you how much he cared about that close call, or how worried he was. This guy was so confident and cocky, even when the police did interrogate him later.
It was part of his job, dude. It was part of his job at this point.
Right. Later that same day, 15 miles away in Pasadena, Rhoades picks up 14-year-old Regina K. Walters and her boyfriend Ricky Lee Jones. Now, this is a different situation than the Mormon couple that he had picked up before. Regina was a young girl who her parents had been divorced. She lived with her dad, and she had gone to visit her mother in Pasadena.
Right.
And she was staying with her mom for a few days, and they didn't get along. They got into a big fight the night before, and she decided to run away with this new boyfriend that she had named Ricky Lee Jones.
Which was common for her. She had a history of running away. So let's throw that out there. This is not one of the police department writing it off as a runaway.
But she was also not the type to not check in. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, after a while. But what I'm saying is, that's why the initial search didn't start right away, and you know what I mean. I don't think it was taken quite as serious right away as most cases would be because of her past.
Yeah. Well, running away was much more of a thing then because of how hard it was to track anybody, and that was kind of beneficial to runaways. Like teenagers that ran away actually got to disappear for a while. Nowadays, it's like you got a phone, they're going to track your ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and kids even know that.
Hey, that's the problem. The kids aren't learning the tough lessons. You need to get out there and actually run away.
Yeah, no.
Don't run away, kids.
There's a reason serial killers were so prevalent back then.
It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. So yeah, she'd been staying with her mom, and she decided to run away. And now I think their idea was that Ricky Lee Jones had family in Matamoros. Shout out to that episode of
Mark Kilroy.
Mark Kilroy,
Yeah.
Matamoros. We talked about.
I like that
he had family in Mexico, just south of Texas, and so not very far. They didn't have to go that far to run away to Mexico for a while and hang out with Ricky's family. So it was actually possible. And it wasn't that hard to just walk across the border back then for American citizens to just cruise over there. They would go over there and party all the time, like we talked about, Mark Kilroy. So it seems like that's where they were headed when Rhoades picks them up. Now, Caroline immediately, that's Regina's mom, was immediately worried about the fact that her daughter hadn't come home. And the next day she reported to the Pasadena police and started posting missing signs all around town. When the police started looking into it, they found out that she was hanging out with Ricky Lee Jones. They see that Ricky he's on parole, and so him fleeing now allows them to issue a warrant, which can help pick these two up. If they issue a warrant on him, police find him and arrest him, then they can also potentially get Regina back.
Right, and it's much easier to get other departments involved now too, right?
Yeah. So you can issue what do they call that? A PVB or whatever.
Right. And also missing persons as well.
Yeah. Right. And so, they also enter Regina's name into the NCIC database, the National Crime Information Center. So if she's found in another state, they will immediately have to contact Pasadena police.
Right.
And then March 17th, Jerry Walters, Regina's father, so this is 12 days after Regina goes missing and her boyfriend goes missing.
Oh, no, wait, it's over a month. February 5th to March 17th.
Oh, yeah. Over a month later,
yeah,
they still haven't found Regina, and her parents are starting to assume the worst. And her father receives a phone call on his home phone. And the phone call is from a man that he doesn't recognize the voice of. And this man was asking Regina's father if he was are you Regina's father?
Right. And
when he said, yes, is she alive? Or he asks immediately, is she alive or dead? Because he assumed this is somebody involved. The caller said that she could be found in the loft of a barn and that some changes had been made. He had cut her hair. He then hung up. Absolutely scary.
Yeah, that's creepy.
I found that he had to bring up that he cut her hair, like of all things, and didn't say whether she was alive or dead. It was very strange.
Yeah, he said something like she looks different now. I guess he was just trying to be like all
mysterious.
Creepy, mysterious, yeah.
The same night, Regina's mother, Caroline, receives a call. She was told to meet at a convenience store the next day by her house. And this was by an unidentified male voice who she assumed was the killer.
Right.
She immediately told law enforcement, who had told her to let them know if she received any calls from anyone. And so they were there surveying this convenience store while she was waiting. And she was kind of like a movie, like assuming every guy that went in was this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but ultimately he never showed up. He called back later again, a few days later, and told her to meet there again, and he didn't show up once again, and then it kind of went cold after that. They stopped hearing from him. He stopped toying with them, and it was unclear how he even had their number. Maybe Regina gave it to him, but then we later find out how, but we'll get into that.
Do you think he was trying to destroy clout in his case? like just trying to make the cops almost get tired of this, almost like, okay, these phone calls don't mean anything.
No,
This is
I
some
think this was
bullshit.
more of his sadism in a sense that he loved getting off on other people's pain. I think
Oh, so just
in the same
fact
way that he got off on the victims themselves, he gets
Right.
off on the suffering of the parents too.
So the fact that she's standing outside that store, wishing
maybe
that
he
she was
was
going to find out something about her
He may have
daughter.
been
is-
somewhere in a car watching her, or maybe he just got off on taunting them.
yeah.
I think that's all it comes down to. I don't think it had anything to do with the investigation. He was so cocky, he didn't think he was ever going to get caught anyway.
No, he really did.
So I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think he just
Right.
got off on people's suffering. Whether he was directly doing it or if it was secondary, like he was torturing the family by what he had done to their daughter.
Right.
Now, most likely when he was making these calls, both Regina and Ricky were already dead. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a chance that Regina, a month later, he may have still have been holding her, but Ricky was dead right away. I mean,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
much like the previous couple. Ricky would later be found with a hole in his skull from a small caliber bullet.
Yeah.
Regina's body was finally discovered in Bond County, Illinois. Many states away, like we said.
Yeah, by an old
taken
farmer,
from
right?
Texas, found in Illinois. When an old farmer inspecting his hay barn,
Yeah. Because he was actually going to burn the whole thing.
he was going to burn it down.
Yeah.
He hadn't used this barn in years, and he was just doing one last walkthrough to see if there's anything in there that he wanted to keep and not get burned. And when he checked the loft, the hay loft, he found a decomposed body
Right.
of a female. And when the police came out, they discovered some really alarming things about this body. It was clearly murdered. This young female, they thought it was a child at first because it was a small body, but
Right.
when the examiner they looked at it, they found that it was a female.
Right. Because Regina was only about 90 pounds.
Yeah.
She was very small frame.
The victim had been strangled with baling wire that was attached to a wooden beam, very John Wayne Gacy-esque in a sense.
Yeah, it is.
The wire had been twisted many times beyond the point needed for death, about 16 times to be exact. It had been twisted. Absolutely.
It probably half cut her throat as well as asphyxiated her.
Illinois police, not knowing whose body this was, entered the specifics of Regina's body into a national missing persons database, and there were about 950 matches that
Jesus.
of missing persons around her age that could have been. So this is what we're talking about with the amount of missing persons and stuff. But he did go a little bit further than that and entered more in, tried to narrow it down a bit.
Right.
After narrowing the results down by age and time that he suspected the person was killed, he got it down to about 100. He then sent teletypes to all the agencies working those 100 cases of what had been discovered.
Yeah.
This was great police work because it actually helped the investigators in Pasadena connect Regina to this body. The investigator working Regina's disappearance in Pasadena received the teletype, and after speaking with Illinois police, so the person working Regina's case in Pasadena sees this come through, calls the police in Illinois, much
Right.
like I'm sure a lot of the other 99 did.
Yeah.
But upon speaking with the investigator in Illinois, learned some things about how this body was discovered that connected with the phone calls that had been made.
Exactly.
So the caller in Pasadena had mentioned cutting her hair and that she would be found in a barn loft.
Right.
And so, of course, as soon as she calls,
As soon as she heard barn, really, she was
heard
like,
barn,
oh, yeah.
and then she heard that the hair had been cut.
Yep.
She was immediately like, this has got to be Regina.
Absolutely.
And so she sends for dental records, and it ends up matching Regina.
Yep.
And so now the police in Pasadena felt like they were dealing with some kind of a nationwide, sex criminal, murderer.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, really, they were also concerned of where Ricky Lee Jones was. Was this Ricky Lee Jones that did this, her boyfriend?
Exactly.
That's what they're initially suspecting. And so they call the FBI for some help because this is now dealing with different states and jurisdictions and all this stuff, and they could use some help on this.
Right.
FBI agent Mark Young is brought in to help find Ricky Lee Jones. Now, when he starts looking into it, this FBI agent, how they have their profiles of criminals and all this stuff.
Exactly.
They go in depth with the psychology of this stuff.
Yeah, he wasn't convinced that Ricky had anything to do with this.
Yeah, when he looked at it, when he looked at the crime scene and how she was killed, he didn't think this was the work of a young teen boyfriend. He thought this was an older man, probably an older white man who had a life on the road.
Yeah. And
When he looked at the barn and the fact that there was a highway just off the barn,
Yep.
like right within eyesight, he thought this is very possibly someone who worked
It's
on the
someone
road.
who travels, traveling salesman. He even mentioned a trucker.
Yeah. And so Jones's body, we talked about, was found with the gunshot. He was found March 3rd, 1991 in Lamar County, Mississippi. This just tells you how hard it is to track this guy and what he's doing. He's just picking people up, dumping them states away.
Yep.
He had a gunshot wound to the left side of the head, but his body was badly, he was pretty much a skeleton at that point.
Right.
He was not actually identified as Ricky Lee Jones until July of 2008, and his family had never reported him missing.
That's so sad. There was one thing.
They had talked to his family, and they were kind of like, yeah, he's a bad kid.
They talked to his sister.
Yeah.
Right? And she was like, yeah, he's a bad kid. And they were like, when's the last time you heard him? She was like,
we don't really care.
Year ago, whatever.
Yeah, we don't really care.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the FBI agent suspected that this was some kind of a serial rapist killer that was working, but he basically had to kind of let it go cold. He didn't have anything to go on.
Yeah.
He didn't have any leads as to who this person was, but he had his suspicions of what type of criminal this was.
Right.
And they needed a break in the case, and in comes this killer, much like we've seen in the past, being so brazen that he gets himself caught.
Yep.
Once again, he'd already almost done it before, and now he does it again. In the dark, early morning hours of April 1st, 1990, Arizona State Trooper Mike Miller observed a Peterbilt semi-tractor rig pointed toward Tucson. And it immediately, sometimes truckers pull off and they sleep or whatever.
Right,
but the
right.
way that this big rig was positioned, he was wondering if the trucker was having difficulty because the rig had its hazard lights flashing and it was parked on a curb off Interstate 10.
Yeah. They interview Mike Miller in the documentary on YouTube, and he says something about it being in an unsafe position or something like that. It was like a no parking zone or something, even though it was.
So he's probably
right
just
off the interstate.
trying to be helpful, like, what's
Right.
going on? Is your truck broken down, or
Right.
how can we help fix this? But when he took his flashlight and walked around the truck looking for the driver, he noticed some commotion within the rig. He heard a woman screaming and thudding going around inside, and he stepped onto the runner to look inside the sleeper cab. And upon doing so, he saw a nude woman shackled and chained to the wall. She screamed frantically when she saw him, and Miller saw a man scramble through the curtains separating the sleeper cab from the front seats.
Yeah.
This is like a movie scene.
And then he doesn't stop there, though. He comes on out of the truck.
Yeah, it starts trying to act normal as this guy
throws
does.
his hands up
this guy is
against the
so
vehicle.
calm under pressure. It's
Yeah.
actually really scary how calm he was able
It's
to
almost
make
like he's just disconnected. Like he's just
sociopath, maybe.
he is like he's a god or something. Like he's untouchable. Well, I mean, if he really was doing it for 15 years.
Yes.
I mean, we've talked about serial killers who go on a spree for months and they start feeling untouchable.
Right.
So 15 years, he's got a lot of security under his belt, he feels.
Right. He was trying to maintain calm as the woman kept screaming. Miller ordered the man out. He complied, came out, and started calmly assuring the police officer that everything was all right. He also informed Miller that he was carrying a gun. He just had it slipped in his back pocket, though. It's not like he had it in the holster or nothing. He just has his gun in his back pocket. He's fighting with this woman who's chained to the wall, and they're just like, everything's not fine, man.
No, everything is definitely
not cool.
fine.
I know people have their own sexual things that they get into, but this just doesn't seem right to me.
Because for one, if you're carrying your gun in your back pocket, that means you had it somewhere else and you put it in there because you weren't sitting on it riding down the interstate.
Exactly.
Like, come on, dude.
Yeah. The quote from Officer Miller, he said, "He was so smooth, yet the woman was terrified. I didn't know what I had on my hands." So this is like the life of a HP or a police officer. You just don't ever know what you're about to walk into. Sometimes things seem so normal until you really...
Yeah. He also admitted, he said that our first impression was that he was a good guy. He said the good guys don't do this kind of stuff. They don't come out.
Tell
they
you
don't
that
come
their
talk
guns in
to
their
you.
back
They don't
pocket.
say, "Hey, I got a gun," and have their hands up. Like, good guys don't do that.
Yeah, it's
in
you
his
maybe
opinion.
get trained a little bit more on psychology, dude, because some of the most sick people act normal real well.
Oh, come on, Lauren.
I know by experience. I'm just kidding.
See, Lauren does a great job on the podcast.
I don't even act normal, man. I'd give myself away a long time ago. Miller took the trucker's wrist, handcuffed him behind his back, and seatbelted him into the patrol car. He then returned to the woman and saw that she was badly wounded. She had red welts on her body, cuts on her mouth. She had a horse bridle strapped around her neck and a long chain padlock to the horse bit. He actually used horse freaking...
I imagine that's what he used to keep him quiet when he was maybe going through way stations or anything, stopping at rest stops, or because he kept these women for weeks, so he's doing all this stuff.
Her ankles and hands were also handcuffed. He then called for backup because he was just like, well, I can't handle this whole situation by myself. And it was a good call because when he went back to the police car, he'd found that Rhoades had already gotten his handcuffs from his back, under his feet, and in the front, and unbuckled his seatbelt. And he was about to get out of the car when he got back over there.
He was flexible.
Yeah. And so upon further inspection of Rhoades' semi, they discovered a dungeon-like compartment between the seats as well as handcuffs on the ceiling so that the victims could be chained and tortured. Now, back at the station, the woman finally began to feel safe. She was a 27-year-old, and the name that we have is Kathleen Vines, probably, like we said, not a real name, but probably for the best.
Right.
After the injuries were photographed, she readily gave information about her attacker, who'd been identified as Robert Ben Rhoades of Houston, Texas. She did a videotaped interview in which she told Detective Rick Barnhart that Rhoades had picked her up at Rip Griffin's truck stop, kind of a cool name,
right,
just north of Phoenix. She had often hitched rides in order to visit friends, she said, adding Rhoades had been very polite at the truck stop, and she'd gotten comfortable enough to fall asleep in the back of the truck, at which point he came back and shackled her. And they also found in the truck a briefcase. Inside was what was described by FBI agents and police officers as very refined,
very sophisticated. I think
sophisticated and
used.
refined rape kit.
Yeah, this will put Dennis Rader to shame.
Yeah,
this is very sophisticated.
Yeah, she'd been tortured on and off since he picked her up earlier that day. She was very lucky that it was only one day because a lot of his former victims were a week or more.
Oh yeah, easy.
But he'd gotten so brazen. She's lucky that this was 15 years in and that he'd just gotten so cocky that he'd pull over with his hazards on and do his work right there on the side of the freaking highway. Now, inside this kit we'll talk about were alligator clips, leashes, handcuffs, whips, pins, dildos, and just about anything you can think of that is useful to this type of freaking sadist sex creep.
Like what else? What was left out?
I'm not sure, man.
I was just testing your knowledge.
If I knew, then I would have to start looking at myself a little bit sideways. I'm just going off what they wrote down because I can't start to speculate about this. Rhoades told her that his name. So he also told these victims stuff that they shouldn't know if he's trying to keep himself not caught. You know what I'm saying? Because he planned on killing her. So he would tell her things like he told her his CB name was Whips and Chains. He also told her that he'd been doing this for 15 years, as we've talked about.
Right.
Kathleen also said that she had managed to bite Rhoades on the shoulder. She was trying to bite his neck one time when he was over top of her, and she missed and bit the shit out of his shoulder. And so now this is a tough situation for the investigators, the police here, because they're interviewing this woman, and she's
everything's going great at first.
She has delusions.
Yeah.
She starts talking about underground prisons and microchips, and so they're sitting there going, damn it. Like,
as you can imagine what this would look like on the stand.
We believe her story about Rhoades because of what we've witnessed already.
And the evidence matches up.
And when she talked about biting him on his shoulder, they went to him, and he
had a fresh bite mark.
He had a fresh bloody bite mark on his shoulder. And so we know that what she's saying about Rhoades is true. We know this guy's dark, and he's based off of what we found in his damn truck alone, with the freaking chains and the rape kit and all this stuff. But at the same time, is she going to be okay on a stand because she's conspiracy to the max, like talking about how people go into underground prisons and never come out and all this stuff that's not even relevant to what they're trying to get done here.
Talking about microchips in the early 90s.
Yeah. And so before the interview ended, though, she told Barnhart that Rhoades got off on the torture, which we'd also talked about. But they're in a tough spot because they just don't know if her testimony and her is the only witness is enough to really get this guy for the serious crimes here if it goes to trial. They knew they were dealing with a serial rapist and possible killer after they had investigated the briefcase and the camper. During the interview with Rhoades, they spent a long time talking about how the woman found was not playing with a full deck. He knew it too. Rhoades knew that this woman was going to be an issue for the police getting him convicted on rape charges and abduction and all this stuff.
And plus he wrote her off as a lot lizard and then said that a lot of this stuff was her idea and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, did she decorate your truck?
Right.
No. Like, this is your truck, bro. Like, you brought
that's your briefcase.
You brought the torture sex chamber to her.
And yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
And he can sit here and say that she wanted it, but that's not what she's saying. And she was clearly petrified. Like, you can't make that up. Like, the way the police found her, as upset as she was, that's not faked. You know what I mean? Right. That's real fear.
Yeah, exactly.
He was booked for aggravated assault, sexual assault, and unlawful imprisonment. Barnhart sent a teletype nationwide and faxed a letter to the Superior Court in Florence, Arizona, to detain Rhoades at least until some more information came in. So they knew that they couldn't hold on to this guy for very long based off what they had. They couldn't trust their one witness to do the right thing on the stand and get this guy put behind bars for a long time.
But they do have reason to search and to look into him a little bit more.
Oh yeah, they're hoping that by putting out this teletype to everyone that they find out more about this guy. He also called the Houston Police Department, knowing that that's where Rhoades had an apartment and that's where his home base was.
Right.
So he thought maybe the police there would know something about this.
But they knew something about a similar case.
Right. It wasn't long before Detective Bomar called Barnhart after he had talked to him before to relate the details of a similar kidnapping in Houston, which was who we talked about before, Nicole Tuttle, the girl that had gotten away but was too afraid to identify Rhoades as the guy who had done it. 2 victims in 2 different states, both with similar tales of unbelievable torture at this man's hands. They now know what they have here, but they've got to prove it.
Exactly.
And once again, they call on the FBI. Barnhart then called Phoenix FBI office, and from there, the growing file on Rhoades went to the Houston FBI office, where it was assigned to Special Agent Bob Lee. And so Bob Lee reviewed the 2 kidnapping victims' accounts of the methodical torture they endured, and viewed the contents of Rhoades' briefcase. He saw a classic profile of a sexual sadist. It was the most refined rape kit that he had ever seen. A quote from him, he said, "Sexual sadists start off with a limited rape kit, as we call it. Because it was so refined, we knew he'd been doing this for a long time."
Wow.
So, I mean, they know what they have, and they know this guy needs to be put away, and I mean, they probably want him killed. Like, they want the death chamber for this guy.
They probably show the pictures of that suitcase in training now.
Right.
For like these people that are on these homicide
You can actually see a picture of it. And it's hard to make out a lot of what's in there. It does.
Yeah, the picture's not the best quality, but you can kind of see there's some plastic spoons and forks in there.
This case probably has the most memorable photographs from it. And one that we're going to get to, when you think about this case, once you know it, there's one picture.
It's heartbreaking.
One of the most infamous crime pictures that there is. You've probably seen it and you didn't even know exactly what it was attached to this case, but yeah, we'll get into it. But like the rape kit picture, the picture of him in chains and like the leather outfit, very memorable. And then the picture of him with later on after he had a stroke with his kind of twisted up, like one eye squinted.
Yeah. In prison,
right. He just looks. Yeah, he started to look like a monster later on. I mean, that's not anybody that's had a stroke. I'm not trying to poke fun at that. I'm just saying it's almost karma that he ended up looking like a monster later on.
Absolutely.
We've talked about people transforming into something like like the Night Stalker. How he's like over time as he did more heinous crimes, he went from like a good looking dude to like this monster looking.
And imagine like these killers, as awful as it is, when they get locked away, it's still what's good to them. It's what's joy for them. It's what's a release. So imagine if the thing you love to do the most was taken away from you. You would start to show physical expression of that.
Yeah.
Of that sadness or that whatever it is, that pent up anger.
Like a caged animal.
Yeah.
Like a tiger when you see them pacing.
It
and you know that they don't get to take down, they don't get to do what their instincts tell them to do, which is take down live animals. It's part of happiness for them.
Right, exactly.
And they're just caged and they get thrown meat, but it's not the same. You know what I mean? Like that's probably what happens to these guys. And it sounds like it's probably like a really creepy way of describing that.
It's a super creepy way. But I feel like
that's similar. They are wild. In a sense, they're wild animals. Out in the public, they can't be out there. They can't be just exposed to being able to do whatever they want because they will do it.
And it's just like there's a weird empathy, I think, that some people feel that when you really start studying this stuff over time and you're like, if he was molested and tortured as a kid.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and it's a vicious cycle and he was created into this and that's the only happiness, that's the only release he can get. That's the only thing that does it for him.
I don't know if this is the perfect guy to say that for, but I know what you're saying. On other cases, like when you have proof of that, but like we have no proof. We have no proof that he was sexually assaulted or anything like that.
No,
sounds like he had, from what we understand, it sounds like he has fairly normal parents and everything. But you just don't ever know. Some people just had something happen and they.
But either way,
but that's also not an excuse if you know.
No, it's definitely not an excuse. I mean, no, there's plenty
of people who have been molested when they're younger and they're completely normal now.
No, absolutely.
It's a complicated thing to get into.
It really is. I'm not trying to empathize. I don't want people to think that I'm or sympathize rather.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sympathize with this killer, but I'm just trying to break down like what that must feel like. If you think the thing that you love the most, the thing that brings you all the joy, and you can't do it because it's wrong. Like it's truly wrong. And then you're put away and you're separated from society. I mean, I think that's why all those guys turn into monsters behind bars.
Yeah. Physically, they did.
Yeah, physically, you overtake that, yeah.
Yeah. Now, we talked about the FBI agent Lee who made this. He looked into it and saw what was a sexual sadist at work.
Right.
And he immediately wanted to search Rhoades' apartment in Houston, hoping to find, he knew like the profile of a serial killer.
Yeah.
This type of guy was someone who's going to keep mementos. He's going to keep pictures.
He had a lot of boxes checked.
He's going to keep clothing. He's going to keep stuff from his victims for sure.
Well, they already found hairs that didn't match either victim in the suitcase, remember? There were strands of hair.
Do you think that Rhoades had put them in there or they just ended up in there?
I don't know. They weren't really clear if it was like packaged or if it was just strands just laying stuck in there or something. Yeah. Like I didn't know if it was like maybe in a sandwich baggie. Like he's got some like labeled or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But they know there's a good chance he's going to have some articles of something from his victims at his apartment, and they were well damn right on that because he had a lot. Upon searching Rhoades' apartment, they first had to get like the ability to search his apartment. Mm-hmm. They had some probable cause, but basically they got it through the manager of his apartment complex. She was nosy and had entered his apartment while he was gone, and made some interesting discoveries. She saw a lot of
what you would suspect.
A lot of Robert Ben Rhoades type stuff in there. A lot of chains and whips and weird stuff. And so she's like, And so when she told the police that, they used that as like an incentive based off of what they'd already found out about him and having victims and stuff.
It was enough for us.
So they went to the judge and they obtained a search warrant. And on April 6, 1990, agents swarmed into Rhoades' apartment. They removed all the bondage material, women's clothing, makeup, a bunch of white towels, one of which was saturated with blood.
Mm-hmm. Women's jewelry, creepy. A lot of women's jewelry.
And that white towel with the blood on it was very telling because both kidnapped victims that they had interviewed,
they had pieces of fabric, right?
Well, not only fabric, like there was fabric found at the body of Regina K. Walters, white fabric that matched a white towel.
Yeah.
Like it was consistent with a white towel. But both kidnapped victims that escaped said that he would use a white towel beneath them before torturing them. And so this bloody white towel was pretty much like a ringing bell, like this is definitely from one of the victims.
Right.
Agents also seized photographs. This is very Jeffrey Dahmer-esque. They Polaroids we talked about in the last episode.
Yeah.
Serial killer's favorite thing, old school Polaroids. They found a whole collection of these, many of a young teenager with very short hair in various stages of undress, always shackled and handcuffed. She must have been with him for some time because they could see different stages of this same girl who was being held captive apparently in these photographs. She had a vacant stare and some of them looked very tearful and scared.
Right. Most of the girls were unrecognizable except for this one.
Yeah. By December of 1990, while the FBI and law enforcement worked together to gather enough evidence to put him away for good, he ends up taking a deal. So he's there because of the dumb getting captured on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And there is a witness there, but she's a little iffy to stand trial. So the prosecutors don't feel real confident taking him to trial. And so they offer him a deal, which is unfortunate because it's way too good of a deal than this guy deserves.
Yes,
even for what they have on him, and they don't even know the rest. He takes a deal from prosecutors in Arizona for the assault and rape of Kathleen Vine, which was 6 years, including time served with an early work release program, which meant he could be out in a year. And so now the FBI and these different agencies are looking, going like, "Fuck this guy! We gotta get him before he gets out, because who knows what he'll do when he gets out? He might flee." He might flee to another country, or he might go on a rampage. We don't know. He
might go back for those women that he originally picked up.
I mean, this is a guy who almost got caught by a girl who could have easily pointed him out to police.
Yep.
The same day goes and abducts a couple and kills them.
Yep.
This
She could have
guy's
immediately saved 2 lives.
Yeah.
Not that that's on her conscience. of
No,
course.
I mean, we can't blame her for that at all.
No.
Back at the FBI office, Agent Mark Young was still looking for leads in the Regina K. Walters murder when he overheard Agent Lee talking to Arizona law enforcement about Rhoades' victim having her hair cut off. He remembered that Regina's hair had been cut and been asking Lee more about Rhoades. Lee showed Young some photos that they had found in Rhoades' apartment, and Young immediately recognized a woman in one of these in a grouping of these photos, the ones we were talking about, as Regina.
And
he took the photos of Regina like standing there in her dress, in the black dress, to her family, and they immediately said that is Regina.
And that dress, wasn't that dress found in the barn?
A piece of the black dress was found in his apartment, and some of it was found at the barn as well, where her body was found.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so I mean, they start piecing all this stuff together. Like, the woman that was found in the barn was Regina. I mean, they already knew that, but now they know that
Now
he
they know
did
who
it.
did it.
Now they know he did it. He's got the photos in his apartment. And so there was also another picture in these Polaroids of a woman that was never identified, and it's a young woman getting out of the truck, and it's believed to be one of his victims, but they don't know who she is. A notebook was also found in Arizona evidence from before the FBI re-inspected the evidence in Arizona in the storage, and found a notebook which explained how he got the numbers to her parents.
Yep.
This notebook belonged to Regina. It was just a little spiral notebook, and it had contact numbers.
Yep.
2 of them being her mom and dad. And there was also a very creepy drawing on this notepad that is believed to be done by Rhoades himself. Very shitty artist, by the way. But it said, Ricky's a dead man, written on it. And it had like a crappy picture of a knife and a gun.
Yeah, he definitely did that.
Yeah, for sure. And it had like blood. It was cheesy. It had like blood dripping off, like the lettering and stuff. But very eerie, though, to know that he took the time to sit down and draw that on her notepad.
Is.
And then he took her notepad with her parents' numbers and decided to taunt them. FBI went to Rhoades' former trucking employer and obtained his driving and gas logs, as well as the identification number of the truck he drove prior. Now, keep in mind, it's been a while since he was driving that truck, and that truck's been now being driven by other truckers. So the evidence...
The company had since sold the truck.
They're hoping that if they go through it with a fine-tooth comb and search it real good, they might be able to find some evidence from the women that they can link him to. Investigators were able to trace him via his truck stop routes in conjunction with the women who had been reporting missing over a 15-year time span, and placed him in the area of over 50 unsolved murders. And so, I mean, obviously, these are links. This is kind of like Randy Kraft's scorecard.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, he was there. This person goes missing. Good chance it was him. We can't prove it.
Right.
But good chance it was him.
Yeah.
You know,
but it is funny that they lined up all the way 15 years back. Like, that's...
Yeah. That's when he said he'd been doing it for.
Yeah.
Because he bit himself in the ass there with that.
Because I think the stuff that he said to those women was totally true.
Oh,
I think
100%. He knew they were going to be dead in his own mind.
He had nothing to lose by telling them, so...
Right. He underestimated them and assumed that they would be dead within a week whenever he decided to end it. FBI then tracked down his former truck, which had been being driven by other drivers for almost 2 years. Yet somehow they still found a hair that matched Regina K. Walters, at least consistency-wise.
Damn.
Which that's hard to hold up in court.
Yeah.
You can't prove for sure 100% this is her hair, but it's consistent with hers. But they did find a print in the sleeper of this thing 2 years later that actually matched Regina K. Walters.
Jesus Christ.
So now they're starting to get there. They're starting to get, I mean, they can prove she was in his truck. He has photos of her in his home. You know, there's way too much now.
Dude, I don't even want to know what else they found in that cab, though, right?
Oh, my God.
I mean, if they picked up a print from 2 years ago, whew.
Yeah. Now, these photos, we can't understate it enough. These are the ones the photos of Regina K. Walters are the ones that we were talking about earlier, like one of the more infamous crime photos. These photos are they affected me probably more than any crime photos I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because they're Regina shortly before being killed. They're her in the barn.
Right.
Wearing this dress, and she's got this petrified look on her face. She knows she's about to die.
Yeah.
And it's
What's I think another
you can
thing
look them up. Look up Regina K. Walters, and I mean, if you have the stomach for it, but you know this girl died shortly after this, and she was being tortured by a complete sick, one of the worst guys
and she wasn't
ever.
and you could tell that her spirit is just broken because she wasn't handcuffed or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was ever a time to fight, it was then. I mean, but What are you going to, I mean, she
They're
was done.
They're
She was
heartbreaking
done.
photos. I can handle pictures of people that are already dead because I know it's over. The suffering's over. I mean, they're dead. But like looking at that photo, you feel like you're put into that place of time where she was still
She's literally
in hell,
suffering
where
right
she's still
then.
in living hell right now.
Right.
And it's not over yet. And you're looking into the eyes of someone who's about to experience that. And so they're rough to look at, man. Yeah. But if you're into that kind of eerie stuff, man, they'll give you that EBGB feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, so when confronted with the evidence, Rhoades was unfazed. He knew that they were fishing for a confession and that they really didn't want to go to trial because they didn't know for 100% that they'd actually be able to get him.
Right.
However, they stood pat. Like, even though he was not fazed, they were going, okay, well, we're taking you to trial anyway. Mm-hmm. So they extradited him from Arizona to Illinois to prepare for trial for Regina K. Walters. It wasn't until early 1992 that the Bond County, Illinois state attorney was convinced there was sufficient evidence after they continued to collect while he was extradited, sitting, awaiting trial. They kept collecting. I mean, he left enough out there, ultimately. I think if I was on a trial, just from what we've told you guys right now, I would hope that you guys would convict this guy for what we know.
Right.
They confronted him once again in September of 1992. He was shown all the evidence against him. And finally agreed that it was time to negotiate a plea agreement so that they didn't have to go to trial. But they were trying to not get him the death sentence at this point.
Right.
So it shows you he knew he was done.
Yeah.
He was then extradited to Utah in 2005 to be tried for the deaths of Candace Walsh and Douglas Sykowski, the young married Mormon couple.
Right.
However, in accordance with the victims' families' request, the charges were dropped in 2006 and he was returned to prison. So I guess they just didn't want to relive it.
They didn't want to relive it.
They knew what had happened. I mean, they had their closure. They didn't want to relive it, and he was already going to be locked up forever because of the Regina K. Walters. And, so that's it. Yeah, man, he's locked up without the possibility of parole. Despite his other convictions in Texas, he continues serving his life without parole sentence at the Menard Correctional Center in Chester, Illinois. He's currently 72 years old. We have we have a quote from a guy named Steve Smith, who was the first assistant in the 112th District Attorney's Office in Texas who worked on Rhoades' case. He said, "I've been a prosecutor since 1979. It was one of the rare occasions where I was in the court where the defendant walked in and you felt the evil. The hairs on my arms stand right up talking about it."
I feel like that gets said a lot about serial killers, though. Maybe this guy just didn't work with a lot of killers. Right. I mean, I feel like somebody says that in all the big cases.
Well, yeah, I mean, the ones we're talking about are the world's worst people, so he was one of them.
Yeah.
And that proves it. Prosecutors believe Rhoades may have put many other women through the cycle of kidnap, torture, and kill. But Smith,
KTK.
Right. It doesn't have quite the same ring to it.
No, not really. Sorry.
Smith said they do not know how many since he traveled so much. The final quote, "That was the problem with him. He was on the interstate everywhere." That's this case. I mean,
and
we
that
just
he
don't,
killed people.
Sadly, we'll never know. We won't. I mean, no matter how much technology advances and science and forensic science and all that stuff advances, it's been too long. And I mean, he's already locked up forever, but we'll never know how many he killed. And sadly, a lot of his victims will probably never be ID'd. And that's just...
Why wouldn't he just talk about it now?
Right?
I mean, you're already a piece of shit. Why not be a great piece of shit?
Right? You could at least slightly change some people's opinions of you slightly if you actually... But then again,
he probably likes the
he's probably still getting off on it.
He's getting off on it, yeah.
It's probably all he's got left.
All those families, he's hanging on to that.
Yeah.
Because he has that one last bartering chip for, I don't know, just for a story, to get someone to listen to him.
He probably gets off on the fact that they'll never find out, and it's up to him, and he's not going to do it.
What an old bastard.
Ugh. Yeah, so
I feel like he talks like a pirate now anyways.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Look up the photos of him now. He's pretty creepy looking. And then even back then, I don't know, the aviator glasses, that one picture, he looks a little...
I think it's relevant, though, for the time period.
He looked like he could have gone either way. He could have just been a guy that was into coke and swinging parties, or a guy that was a serial rapist killer.
You know what I was thinking, though? Those glasses were probably popular for truckers because, like, when you look up and straight, it's shaded out the window. But when you look down inside your truck and you need to see gauges or whatever.
Yeah. When you're shifting gears and double clutching. Once again, shout out to the truckers out there, man. I envy that job a little bit. I want to do it. I would like to do it for like a year just to see the country, and then I think it would probably get old. But I mean, don't all jobs get old?
I couldn't drive that much.
All jobs get old.
Oh yeah, everything does.
Unless you're like,
You got to keep it fresh.
maybe if you're in law enforcement, or if you're like you're tracking down killers all the time, it probably doesn't get old.
Podcasting is really not getting that old. I wish that was my job.
Speak for yourself. No, I'm just kidding. All right, guys, let's do some shout outs and some sponsors. ohmygaia.com. Tell us about it, Michael.
I would love to. Oh My Gaia is an innovative all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients.
It works so good that I wonder why you have to put aluminum and paraben in the first place.
That's a great question.
Because like her deodorant works better than, as good or better than any deodorant I've ever used. My pits do not get sweaty, they do not get moist.
Right.
They smell fantastic. I even rub it on my chest hair. It's kind of gross.
You don't set off metal detectors?
Yeah. No. I even take a little bit, and
I do too,
take just a little bit of residue left on my fingers. I use my fingers to put it in my pits, and then I rub a little bit on my shirt just because it smells so damn good.
Yeah, sometimes I just rub it on my chest or on my neck or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like whatever.
Yeah, and the beard oil is epic as well, man.
Oh,
my beard's getting pretty nice for the playoffs.
It smells good.
Sorry, Kings fans, we swept it.
Oh, sorry.
It's that beard oil luck, man.
That's right. You got to keep it going.
Yeah.
And make sure you stay up on that.
Yeah, so if you want to win in the playoffs, get some Oh My Guy beard oil.
Nah, I don't know if that's proven, but hey, who cares?
True Crime Pine is going to be a thing. I was talking to her about it.
Yes.
I told her that I like it the way it is, and I like the name True Crime Pine.
True Crime Pine.
Obviously, she depends on me for business decisions.
Yeah, I don't know why.
So
what a terrible idea.
Look forward to some True Crime Pine being on shelf soon, and the community's going to step up, man. You guys got to get some True Crime Pine deodorant going.
Right, and if pine's not your thing, she has a ton of scents. Or if you don't want scent at all, you can get unscented.
It's going to be a thing they're having to do at trial. Like if you're on trial for murder, you're going to have to have the jury smell your pits. Like, oh, he's got True Crime Pine. Guilty.
Yeah, maybe wear vanilla when you go to court.
Yeah,
you know,
something sweet.
Vanilla, cherry almond. She's got sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, which is one of my personal favorites. Coconut, that's always a good scent to have.
Dreamsicle's amazing.
Dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack.
Lumberjack's the shit. I'm sorry, that's my jam.
Lauren likes lumberjack. Honeysuckle, and for any of these scents, you can use the code CRIMEGUYS for 15% off. It's just one word though, just Crime Guys.
Boom,
one word. And you can find her at ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's ohmygaia.com.
Do it.
And if you like her packaging, you should check out our other sponsor,
Propaganda Creative.
That's right.
Do it again, ready?
Propaganda Creative. I'm going to add some echoes to that. Maybe. Or I might forget. Otherwise, you guys just found out.
Right.
Propaganda Creative is a full-service design firm located in Spokane, Washington.
Spokane.
They're small but mighty.
Sometimes when someone asks me if I'm single, I go, I'm Spokane for. Thank you. I'm here all week.
But
I literally just came up with that on the spot. That's how good I am.
Well, that's pretty good then. No. They provide web design, graphic design, and other marketing services with a focus on amplifying brands and helping good people create success, just like Wendy at Oh My Gaia. They're affordable because they're in Spokane. Okay, they're not in New York, they're not in LA, they're not in San Francisco.
All those cities can fuck off.
Their prices are too high.
Yeah,
they're too high. You can't create there. It just costs too much.
Yeah.
But they offer all kinds of services. Their two main services are web design development and branding and identity, which is basically creating a logo.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a podcast or you have a small business that you're not sure what to do with the logo yet, hit them up. If you have something you're selling and you want good packaging, it's phenomenal packaging.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Packaging design, print design, advertising, video, photography, copywriting, illustration, strategy and consultation, web design, e-commerce development, motion graphics, design for mobile applications, and social media marketing. They can help you with all of these things or some of these things.
Yeah, if you have an idea, they can make it happen.
Absolutely.
Like you can call them up like, I need a logo, I need a website, I need all this stuff.
Absolutely.
And you can get a discount by using our code, right?
Right. And so you've heard enough. You need to know how to talk to them, right?
Yeah.
Or you go to nwpropaganda.com or email them at info@nwpropaganda.com. And if you mention True Crime Guys at all, they'll say fuck off. No, they would
double the price.
No, I think they'll give you 15% off. Maybe it depends on how happy they are with these ads. But that's Propaganda Creative.
Yeah. So thank you guys for that, and let's do some shout-outs. Thanks everyone who has gone to iTunes and rate and review, or Stitcher, or however you rate and review us, or you don't even have to review, just rate, just click 5 stars, that helps. You have them in front of you, right? Let's read a few of them, or just give people shouts for rating and reviewing. Someone give us a bad one because we do too many Bill Burr impressions.
Oh, fuck off, right?
Fair enough.
No, hey!
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Right. But probably won't stop doing that though.
Fuck off.
So I guess he's not going to resubscribe. So, damn, another one gone.
Good riddance.
Yeah, but we got a lot of 5-star reviews from Perky Petunia, Stick Lady 1, Demise 3, and Jeff GGG. I actually like this Demise 3. I appreciate this review because I'm just going to read it. It says, I began listening to True Crime Guys over a year ago and took a small break from them. I recently started listening again, and the way the show has evolved has been phenomenal. The way the show is structured and the way the guys tell the stories makes you want to binge listen all day. Keep up the great work and keep on creeping. I love that we're growing and we're still getting better. Like I really appreciate that people are noticing that as well.
That we keep working at the craft.
We're not getting complacent.
Yeah.
Every time I edit, I know every time Lauren does a timeline, like we try to go a little bit better every single time because we really like doing this. And
that being said, we have our on weeks and our off weeks too. I mean, you really can't like help the way you feel that day. And the studio, some days we're just like so excited to do it, and then other days we're like, all right, let's get through it.
But we are putting forth a lot of time,
effort. Yeah,
we are putting forth a lot of effort as well. Like we realize that we could always be better, and we're constantly trying to be better.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that he actually recognized it and he gave us another chance.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to thank sticker donors. You can go to truecrimeguys.com and click on stickers. There's a tab at the top that says stickers. It gives you a way to donate for a couple bucks, and we'll send you. We have 3 different designs. Tell us what you want. We have the creep van. Mm-hmm. We have the I'm a creeper heart with the headphones. I'll give you basically. Usually, I'll just kind of mix it up. If you don't specify, I'll just throw whatever in there.
Yeah.
Just donate a few bucks, and I will send you a personal message with the stickers in it.
Yep.
And some people who did that this week were Jennifer Cook, thank you, and Michaela Burke, thank you.
Right. And Mariah.
Yeah, Mariah in
you missed her last week.
Mariah in the Netherlands.
Yeah, way to go.
Thank you. That was like $9 to send those stickers. I'm kidding.
You're welcome, Mariah.
There's 3 stamps. Not big. $1.50. Not big.
$1.50.
What else? You can follow us on social media at True Crime Guys on Twitter, at True Crime Guys on Instagram. We have a Facebook.
We have a Facebook page. There's also a True Crime Guys closed group run by Michelle K. She's a great supporter of the podcast. If you want to get on there, you want to talk, you want a discussion, you want to talk about how those guys are fucking annoying, you can do that. Mm-hmm. And what else? What else we got?
I don't know. Redbubble, we have merch.
We do. We have merch. Go to our Redbubble store. Click on portfolio. Click on the design that you like. And there are shirts, hoodies, mugs, I don't know, fucking notebooks, clocks. There's all kinds of stuff on there. If you want to get some creeper gear, you want to weird out family members, whatever you want to do, it's there. It's available.
I want to give a special shout to Chris Sharp, who's always doing all kinds of cool shit. Like he's just like one of our biggest.
I look forward to his comments on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, you sometimes some listeners just stick out from the bunch with like how much like he actually like makes photographs for. He does like Photoshop work for us. Like last week we talked about Polaroid pictures and he made like a meme. Yeah. True Crime Guys, bring back the Polaroid. Shake it like a serial killer. So I just like those always make me giggle, and so like thank you to all those listeners that go a little above and beyond, and like
that stuff brightens up our day. It really does.
Yeah, when you send us even just like send us a screen cap that you're listening to the show, like sharing it with others, stuff like that's cool. But
absolutely.
Right. Patreon.
Oh God, how did we forget?
How did we forget about that?
Seriously.
Yeah. So next week we're doing another Patreon exclusive.
Right.
It's that time again. We're actually like a week early this time, but we were a week late last time, so we're making up for it.
Yeah.
And so we think we know what we're doing, but we're not going to give it away. But it's going to be a little different, but still the same.
And if you're
different, but same.
Yeah.
same, but different.
And if for some reason, if you're still unfamiliar with Patreon, it's very simple. Like you can go to patreon.com, search True Crime Guys, or hit us up. We'll send you a link. And
Patreon,
you sign up.
Specifically, it's patreon.com/truecrimeguys.
Right. It's very simple. You get to, and you can sign up, and for $2 a month, you get to hear all of our premium episodes. And if you go through iTunes, you don't have to get another app. Once you sign up, these episodes will show up in your feed. They'll look a little bit different.
Yeah. So
what
happens?
It's very user friendly, guys.
So what happens is you go to patreon.com/truecrimeguys. You donate, or you pledge $2 a month.
Right.
And it automatically sends a link to your email. You click on that link, and then whatever podcast app you use.
Yep.
It's going to open that, and it should have our feed, and it's got our gold logo in there. It's a different feed with all of these episodes, which we've done 12 or 13 now.
Yeah.
All the big hitters, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, you name it.
BTK,
all the big hitters, Gary Ridgway.
And then a couple off-the-wall things, too, like
absolutely.
Ruby Ridge.
Billy the Kid we just
Billy
did.
the Kid, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun with those, too. We definitely put in the extra time because, you guys are doing what you can do to support the show.
A lot of the
really
episodes are
that.
3+ hours, like Jonestown. Jonestown was 3 hours. We
get our Joe Rogan on those.
Yeah.
We could talk forever.
We go deep. We go crazy. And then there's other stuff, like we have a few recordings with listeners on there.
Yeah. Yeah, if you pledge $10 a month and you want to have a conversation with us, we'd love to talk to you. We've talked to a few people on there, and that's our conversation. We're not weird. We're just real people who like to talk to fans. We really do. It's a fun part about podcasting. It's the reach and the connection with other people with like interests,
Yep. And we're doing another giveaway next week as well on the episode.
Yes.
So
we're gonna do like a little gift bag this time. We're gonna give away a few things.
Oh, I'm down.
So we'll do that. We'll pick maybe 3 things bundled together from the store.
Ooh, that's a good giveaway.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, so you definitely want to be a member for that. If you're any pledge, doesn't matter. $2 and up.
$2 pledge, you have just as much amount of winning as 10. But
There's somebody who gives us $50 a month.
Yeah.
He actually won last week, but that was just a coincidence. Or not last week. He won a couple weeks ago.
Right.
But yeah. All right, guys. Keep creeping. Happy 420.
Yeah. I was really high for this one.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, right.
I would
All right, keep
never do
creeping,
such a
guys.
thing.
Keep creeping, everybody.
See you guys next week.
Goodbye.
Later.